Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back to another live stream of Hearthstone. Today is Wednesday, May 22nd, and ridiculously, they nerfed cards and made changes while we are still in the middle of the long drawn out Rise of the Shadows expansion. Week 2 of the solo adventure is happening tomorrow. So I didn't do any real prep work on here. I just didn't really want to spend the time on it, frankly. I was too busy playing the Doom reboot or playing on my phone or just doing other things. But my plan here is to disenchant all these cards if I have them. And I may do this off screen because I may not have a list. Yeah, I don't think I have a list easy to access. I'm gonna just disenchant them all for dust, and then when I get a classic card pack, almost certainly I will get all of these cards back because these are just classic cards. I did look on the Reddit subforum for Hearthstone. I don't read that very frequently at all, and it seemed like most people were cool with most of the nerfs, but preparation in particular ruins the rogue deck and makes it all rogue cards from the past a lot worse, at least all rogue spell cards, because there's this was like a key linchpin, a keystone for all of the other cards that they had designed. Everything had been designed with preparation in mind, and now that's not the case. So yeah, unless there was a way that I could type in nerf or nerfed, like they're making it rather difficult here to see how you would find these cards. Let's see, because you'd have to come in the classic, you'd have to just look for them, and let's see, you just have to find them here. So yeah, and you only have a week to do this, so you're gonna have to, like, ideally what you should do is disenchant this for dust now and just not recraft it with the dust, because it still would cost you 400 dust. Just disenchant them now and hope you'll get these cards eventually from card packs, or you leave it alone, you don't play those games, and you maintain a complete collection of cards. Although the nerfed cards probably change nothing now because you probably won't be playing them anymore. It also means, for comparison's sake, that any of these custom pre-built decks were built on what is now outdated information, and so if there is a custom rogue deck here and it has preparation in it, which it does, it's still going to have that in there, even though now preparation does something very different, making the deck play differently. I also tried and failed to do the solo adventure while nobody was off screen, and yeah, I think that'll probably be the case. We need to do 3 tavern brawls, ideally with paladin and warrior, and so then ideally with paladin. What is this deck? What's today's tavern brawl? 2 Gnome Gums are testing their prototype card bot Optimatron. The card you draw with 1 on turn 1 will be 1 cost card. If you have 1 on turn 2, it costs 2. Okay. So that seems like that's just going to change the cost and not really affect anything. So Paladin, copy to save time. My Paladin deck works very well. Come over here, create deck, just paste it in. We can get going. I'm trying something new today. It may work, it may not. Twitter suggested that I follow a new video game website. Seems like it's probably run by maybe just a couple of people, and they mentioned 2 locations, so that means that at least 2 people are working on it. It's called Niche Gamer, although in all fairness, if you tried to look up Niche Gamer, I wouldn't be surprised if you ran into a completely different Twitter feed than what I'm following, or a different website.
You asked for it.
I will
There's
fight with honor.
Probably, so far, if I was just to make a snap judgment here, it's probably not adding any new information. So I probably will stop following it just because it's repeating exactly what other sources are saying. That being said, maybe I'll get rid of other sources. Where it's really going to boil down to is if they have any news if they break any news themselves. That this is the difference between a real website and just a aggregator. Do they break any new news themselves, or are they just repeating what everybody else is saying? Even the websites that do break news in the video game journalism world are 99.9% aggregators and just repeating what other people say. And they could write their own articles and reviews, and that might be slightly helpful, but I really am not in the business of looking at other people's reviews because that just takes more time. But we may have some new stories here, but I would say take them with a bit of a grain of salt because I haven't fully vetted this news source, and so there might be straight up just falsity in their reporting. And so yeah, we'll take that with a grain of salt. Before we hop into that, there's I'm still playing the Doom reboot. There is something majorly off with the pacing of the Doom 2016 reboot. I described it as I was playing as it lets you take a bite of pizza where you have these combat encounters, and then it makes you run a mile to burn off the calories of that bite of pizza, and then you get another bite of pizza, and it's just very oddly paced in the way it feels, and it doesn't feel particularly great. All the demons, even on easy, are bullet sponges, and there's relatively small amounts of demons. The AI in the characters is pretty bad. It's starting to feel that way because you have a lot of AI that don't run towards you and will try to keep their distance, but then they'll hit a specific time and then they'll just try to run to another platform, and it kind of feels like that they either have terrible pathfinding in their programming, or they are just pre-programmed to go to certain spots. So you'll have imps that throw fireballs at you, that will throw a fireball at you and then maybe throw a second fireball at you, and then they'll immediately jump to another spot that's pretty obvious. This is an easy victory. That works just perfectly. So I wonder if I was to open up a pack and get preparation or one of the nerf cards right now and then dust it, will I get the full amount for that dust? I would assume the answer to that is probably yes, but I'm not 100% certain on that. So yeah, I would definitely want Doom to be more of a system, more of a game around having probably twice as many enemies as I have. I've managed to make it to the Hell Dimension, so I'm at the first level there, and I wouldn't be surprised if there's only 3 or 4 more levels in the entire game.
I'll never tell.
Let's see.
Job's done.
So yeah, I'm not hating the game. It just feels like with the id-Tech engine, there's a lot of resources that were wasted trying to make that work, and there's a lot of resources that seem like they're wasted making very big level maps that are then underutilized as far as just understanding what would be desirable in a game. All the levels feel very much like they are multiplayer map levels that are very circular and designed for human players to be on, running around shooting each other, instead of being more linear, thought out pathways. And even when you do get a point of the levels that do feel linear, that then all of a sudden feels out of place, and that feels bad too. So it really is this case of it just kind of does not feel, the entirety of the game does not feel as good as much as it was hyped by particularly the mainstream video game journalists, who said that they loved the game and it was a fast action-paced game. And I'm just not having that experience at all. If I get near enemies, they still take out 10 points of health. I've upgraded my health a lot to try and contradict some of that, but there's definitely still points of pain. You have this chainsaw, but you can't actually use the chainsaw whenever you want to, at least not in the main story. You have 3 units of fuel for the chainsaw, and depending on how big the enemy is that you want to use the chainsaw on, determines how many units of fuel is used. And fuel is not incredibly scarce, but scarce enough that you couldn't use it in a fight more than twice, really. But again, chainsaw doesn't work when a lot of the enemies are designed in trying to run away from you. And also you have this, I've upgraded an assault gun with a scope, so a lot of times as I'm entering a region where you can clearly see there are demons running around, you're just sniping these demons, shooting them in the head, playing this like it was a stealth shooter game. This feels like Gears of War, several years earlier, succeeded at being a better Doom compared to what this Doom is.
For the crusade! For justice!
Because Gears of War was also a cover-based shooter, and Doom really shouldn't be a cover-based shooter, but it had the chainsaw on their guns and more of a that active reload ability in Gears of War that reloaded faster through a mini game was a cool idea. I've yet to see a boss. All I see is just every level seems to introduce maybe one or two new mid-tier style enemies, but that's it. They don't have any significant large amount of health, and they never are unique. So it's like, I thought in the previous level that I was fighting a boss because it zoomed in on them and showed it, and then I killed that creature, and then two more immediately summoned. So not really much of a boss. There's a point in the game also where you are fighting just an endless onslaught of demons, which didn't seem particularly fair, but it does, I guess, imply that you don't have to kill every demon on the map always. I am starting to wonder if I just have, in my old age, having played so many games, if I've become so much of a critic that I can't enjoy anything. That might be the case too. Like, the part of my brain where I can just turn things off and have fun. If I could do that, I imagine I would enjoy Doom a lot more. But you need to really run and gun in the game, and they really need to get rid of the collectibles. All the rune trials that I've tried are like way too difficult unless I'm warmed up, so I'm just skipping them. I'm just like, oh, this would take too many efforts, too many attempts, and I'm hoping that from the main menu I can access them later. Not that they'll be any easier at a later time. But yeah, there's way too many collectibles, and it does feel like resources were sucked away from the main story line to instead give way to the snap map feature and the multiplayer feature. And it seems like id Tech didn't really want to make a Doom game. I'm sure Bethesda forced them into it, and so they really just want to work on their engine, and their engine, in my opinion, is just not as good as Unreal or the Crysis engine, or even maybe the Unity engine. So, and I wouldn't be surprised, and I might be right on this, that Doom Immortal, which I think is the sequel to the Doom reboot, might be skipping straight to the Unreal Engine, which would help them have more time to work on other things. So which is exactly what they should be working on, is more storyline, although how much story can you really put in Doom? They're doing a pretty decent job trying, but you can't really make Doom Guy too different from the faceless, voiceless character that we played in Doom 1 and Doom 2. So you can only really do small amounts of characterization.
Join or die.
Moving on, we have a game on Steam here called Heaven's Voice Feast of Famine, which does not look good, but it does have an interesting art style. Although I'm wondering if maybe these are pre-drawn characters. Yeah. It wouldn't be too hard, I suppose, for somebody who has like a DeviantArt page to try to make a RPG Maker game, which is pretty much all this seems to be, with their own art assets, or for somebody to make an RPG Maker game and steal somebody's art assets from DeviantArt, particularly if you're just gonna just need a couple of still images. Of course, that game does not look good even at free. I would do this, do this.
For justice.
Attack here. Next, we have a game with a lot more prospects. We have Atelier Lulua, the Scion of Arland. And it's already rated very positively. This is a JRPG with an anime aesthetic, although don't get too confused by the anime intro. The game is going to look more like this, which is terrible. You're mostly, you have like 3 female characters and 2 male characters in this image, so I think you're going to mostly be looking at female anime characters in this JRPG. The Atelier series is one that is becoming more and more prevalent in my mind. I'm not 100% sure if it's the JRPG series to play though, or if it's good. A lot of the Atelier games seem to focus around running a shop as well as, or at least one of the games revolved around running a shop. Here we have Atelier Ferris, which is rated very positively. Here we have Atelier Sophie, which is rated very positively. Let's see if there's any other Atelier games to recommend. I would probably want to play the Tales of series before I played the Atelier series, but if I find a way to spend the time and jump into a JRPG series, I could see an argument there. I don't know how though I would be able to play JRPGs and cover all of them. They just all take way too much time, and spotlighting a JRPG is probably not a fair way to cover any kind of RPG. That being said, I wouldn't be 100% surprised if I could convince myself that there's a level of unnecessariness to playing some of the Final Fantasy games. Like, maybe it would make more sense to play more niche and small, lesser known JRPGs if I'm gonna play any kind of JRPGs. Because yeah, who hasn't heard of Final Fantasy compared to who has heard of Atelier? Those are all just on the to-do list, and the to-do list often just gets longer and longer.
For justice.
Let's see. Next, we have a story from Gamatsu. Closers for the PS4 has been delayed to June in Japan. Closers, another JRPG game. No big surprise here. That is pretty typical. And just like that, we are done with the American account. Alright. So, I wouldn't be surprised if it has been programmed so that we don't actually get any of the cards that have just been nerfed. At least for this week.
Golden Common.
Yeah, I don't think any of those were nerfed. So, we'll just go in here. And unfortunately, It's just gonna be one of those days. So we've only been going about 12 minutes, and I'm going to have to take a 20-minute bathroom break. Yeah. So, well, maybe. Yeah. Yeah. So, I guess it's probably been more than 20 minutes. It's been 35 minutes. Interesting. So, let's wrap up here, and then I'll leave it just muted and come back in about 20 minutes on the live stream. And apologies for this. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want a friend to follow me on any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below in the description box. And if you want to support me even further, there's a link to Patreon, or you can friend me on Steam and gift me a game off my wish list. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening. Hey everybody, this is Rydo, and we're back to another recording of Hearthstone. Today is Wednesday, May 22nd. We're kind of all over the board. We're on the European account, and we only have to win 3 games with the Major Shaman, and we need to get a Tavern Brawl done. So, I guess the easiest thing we could do is find out... Let's see, do we want to play the Mage or the Shaman? We'll try the Mage. I don't see why that would win particularly easy, but I'll try it. Meanwhile, on the main account, there was nerfs that happened, but we didn't get that warning this time. So when I logged into the European account, so Preparation is the big card that was nerfed, and yes, I could disenchant it and get the dust, and then hope that over the course of the next couple of months I would regain these cards via just card packs that you win in Tavern Brawls and such. But frankly, it's just easier to maintain that complete collection of the classic cards, which I think I have on the European account and Asian account also, at least to a certain degree. Maybe there's a few, maybe 3 or 4 legendaries I'm missing, but it certainly wouldn't help anything. And getting away from having to buy classic packs when there's a new expansion is a nice goal for a YouTube streamer in particular. This may be a shorter day. I'm already had to go to the bathroom between one recording that was abruptly ended, and we did all 3 of the daily quests very quickly on the main account anyways. So I'm probably best suited at this point to try and burn through the news as much as possible. And we're trying out a new news source called Niche Gamer that I haven't covered any of their articles yet, but it will potentially play a part going forward. We may cover some of these articles. First, we have a Gamatsu article, and we know Gamatsu. Capcom sales update, Resident Evil 2 is at 4.2 million, and Devil May Cry is at 2.1 million, and there's more information. I would also point out that God of War hit 10 million units sold. Monster Hunter World here is at 12.4 million. This really goes to show that even a very good game like Resident Evil 2, of which there are, I believe, 3 games that are rumored to be being developed on the Resident Evil 2 engine, which doesn't inherently mean that they're horror games. But yes, it does kind of show the nicheness of horror games. Puts your sales of a horror game at like half of what a more extremely popular game compared to Monster Hunter World. Although Monster Hunter World is at 3 times, or nearly 3 times of Resident Evil 2. And Devil May Cry 5 I think has a small nicheness too, because it's a game that's rather demanding to play, and it's an action button masher game. Also, there's certainly some differences between the date in which these games were released. Devil May Cry 5 was at least a couple months later than Resident Evil 2. And Street Fighter 5 is at 3.1 million copies. And I would argue that Street Fighter 5 probably is the one game that will suffer the least, will have the least amount of growth after a certain point, because I very much suspect that the people who would have wanted to buy or play with Street Fighter 5, they've probably come and gone. Like, I doubt that there's going to be a big influx. There's a whole list and chart here comparing how Resident Evil 5 right now is the best selling, which is odd because Resident Evil 5 wasn't really the greatest game. You'd think Resident Evil 4 would be the best selling because it's being re-released a lot more often. In fact, it's being re-released on the Switch. Or has been. And then Resident Evil 6 sold a little bit less, and then Resident Evil 7 sold a little bit less, and frankly it deserves to sell a lot more. But you really do have to compare dates here too. And then a whole collection of Monster Hunter games. Then Resident Evil 2 is at the 10th spot. Street Fighter 2 Turbo for the Super NES sold 4.1 million, which and Street Fighter 2, the regular edition, sold 6.3 million. So Street Fighter in particular is not doing good at all in comparison. Let's see. What do I want to do? Go ahead and hit this, and hit this, and hit that. Under Street Fighter 5 is Dead Rising 2 at 3.1 million. Devil May Cry 4 is at 3 million, so Devil May Cry has always been kind of niche. Resident Evil for the 1 only sold 2.75 million. That's odd, but I guess maybe that's not including the re-releases. There might be a different way to evaluate some of this. Yeah, because later down their sales charts they have like Resident Evil HD Remaster, and then they have Resident Evil 4 for the PS2 only, broken up compared to Resident Evil 4, the Wii edition. So you could probably do some conglomeration here and show that the same games are very similar games, have done more damage than you would think. Why Capcom has this mega list of platinum titles? It's probably just to show off more than anything, but it's not the best. It's not the best brag, really, because yeah, Capcom in its heyday made good games, and Capcom is kind of in an upswing right now at making good games. But I don't 100% guarantee or have confidence that they won't fall back into bad behavior and potentially start making cheap games again. and or bad quality games again. So that was one victory. I don't have any other reason to keep playing the Tavern Brawl, so we're move forward here. Hey, we got a legendary. Can we get an epic too? No. Golden legend? No golden legendary. I don't believe any of these cards were the cards that were nerfed. So if I dust any of them, I don't think I'll get an extra bit of dust. Apparently I didn't have that legendary. Alright. So that brings about an interesting question. Let's see what we are missing in the crafting mode and classic. Let's see. Alright. So we are still missing this legendary, this legendary, this legendary, this legendary, this epic, this epic, this epic, and this legendary, and then a whole collection of epics and legendaries. Alright. So yeah, there's still a decent amount of cards. I may have to open another 25 packs of classic cards. Or because I don't think dust would be the smart move here. And we can do a little grinding on this and just play Shaman and Mage. Gamatsu has an article, and a lot of people are talking about this with the end of Game of Thrones, which seems like nobody really liked the ending of Game of Thrones or the last season at all. George R.R. Martin, which has said, I've consulted on a video game out of Japan, the rumored From Software collaboration project ? This could mean anything. It could almost certainly be related to a Game of Thrones game that's in development. It could be a Game of Thrones pachinko machine for all we know. It could be that he was asked to consult on any number of standard JRPGs. Like, if you think about it, the thing that George R.R. Martin is, I feel like I'm gonna add an R every time I say his name. Is I'm gonna be like George R.R. Martin. The thing he is known for is epic political intrigue and battle between kingdoms. It could be Ni no Kuni, quite frankly, that he consulted on. It could be any game. And frankly, his consultation might have been nothing more than Japanese fans of Game of Thrones wanted to meet him, and so they paid him a lot of money to come and talk to them as a consultation when they really had no intention of doing anything more with his ideas. And arguably, I think you could say or claim that he has painted himself into a corner with the Game of Thrones series and not been able to finish it. So he's putting himself potentially in a different position than what J.K. Rowling put herself into, in which she just could not let go and finish the Harry Potter universe, either because so many people demanded more content or because she clearly didn't want to stop making money off of it. Well, I could do this. Is it worth that, though? I wonder. Let's see. This, and then this, and then this. So yeah, from what I hear, the final season of Game of Thrones is generically speaking what the end of the books is going to be. So I wouldn't be surprised though if he took some feedback and changed some things. There certainly are some obvious things you could change, I think, without ruffling any real feathers compared to the TV. But I would say he's not so much a proven thing. Whereas if you were to say get Neil Gaiman, I think he's a fair comparison to consult on a Sandman video game or a is it Good Omens or Bad Omens? I think it's Good Omens. I think that's an Amazon Prime TV adaptation that's coming out on the 31st. But yeah, getting someone who finished their stories on the record and helping probably is a much better idea. So, and there's really nothing to that story for as much as it got reposted. It's just, he said in a tweet or something that, yes, I've consulted on the game. That's pretty much it. Moving on to the next story, and this is something that I kind of expected. Valve latest Steam blog addresses positive review bombing, and I wondered very much if they were ever going to do anything about people positively review bombing games. If you're going to really say how you define these off-topic review bombs. And I was not surprised, frankly, when they came out and said, no, we're not going to do anything about the positive review bombs that happened for Assassin's Creed Unity after the Notre Dame fire. Notre Dame, the quick recap, the Notre Dame fire happened. Ubisoft gave away copies of Assassin's Creed Unity for free on Uplay. That caused more people who either had owned Unity before to review it positively, or people to buy it on Steam and then review it positively, even though it was for free on the on Uplay, and you still would have to have gone through Uplay to play the game, even if you did buy it through Steam. It was also, I think, worth remembering, I was not impressed with what Ubisoft was doing in the wake of the fire, donating maybe a small pittance of money, but really not helping the people of France, which they have much bigger problems to deal with than a Catholic church burning down, when the Catholic church itself has billions upon billions of dollars and can easily afford to repair their own churches themselves, and through donations that individual members of Catholic churches give on a daily basis. But yeah, so they run some numbers and throw out some numbers that are probably bunk and kind of impossible to prove, saying that even if they did mark that period of activity as a positive review and remove it off as an off-topic review, because it really isn't a case of the game got better. It is 100% a case that the game is the same that it was before the Notre Dame fire, and people are reviewing it for something that has nothing to do with your experience that you would have playing the game. They should mark it off, but I knew they weren't going to do this. Their storefront, like, this is what Walmart does, this is what any store does. If Walmart puts reviews on a product, or if the seller of a product put reviews on the back of their DVDs, they don't put the negative ones, they put the positive ones. And what this inherently opens the door for, and the whole reason that the review bombing idea made any sense at all is was like large entities manipulating reviews of games, particularly China, as manipulating the review of, I believe the name of the game was Devotion. Now you've opened the door to say that China can and is basically welcome to positively review every single cheap Chinese product that they can, or pro-Chinese government product on Steam, and Steam won't do anything about it. Once they became the curator, they were stepping into an extremely dangerous position, and they never should have done that in the first place. But now they're just going further down the well. Although their actions will keep Ubisoft happy, and I'm sure Ubisoft would have been very upset if Valve had come out and said, we're going to mark this as a review bomb. It would have also certainly been easy to paint Valve as the bad guys, punishing a video game company for allegedly doing a good thing. But yeah, so they're gonna leave it as it is. I think they could have probably found a small window of time that they could have marked as a positive review bomb, and just said, okay, we're not going to count the day of the Notre Dame fire, or the day after the Notre Dame fire, and then leave it alone after that point. That way you could have been a bit more middle of the ground with it, but no, they're siding with developers and publishers against consumers, and this undoubtedly is an anti-consumer action, so don't take it any other way. Your reviews that should be there to help you make a decision about whether a game is fun to play or not are being manipulated to look more positive based on actions that a company took outside of that game. And I think it's always important to also point out corporations are not people, regardless of what Republicans in the United States try to spout, and frankly retarded people in the United States try to spout. Corporations are not people. They do not have souls, and they will not act in the best interest of a society at any consistent amount of time. They are evil, money-grubbing, soulless entities designed and built to only gain more money above all else. And that's putting it nicely. Let's see. Moving on, we have a story from GameIndustry.biz. Nintendo is going to halt the service of 2 mobile games in Belgium amid the loot box debacle. Animal Crossing Pocket Camp and Fire Emblem Heroes will be taken offline in Belgium on August 27th. So both of those games had loot boxes that were close enough to loot boxes to be removed. But although Nintendo took their sweet time compared to Valve, EA, Blizzard, 2K, and Square Enix that also did similar things. So yeah, Belgium is taking the loot box issue seriously, and it would be nice if video game companies had taken that a lot more serious and not started with microtransactions and loot boxes to this point. I was listening to a podcast, and there was one of the people speaking, one of the commentators, talking about how they were just playing a simplistic game that was like a looter shooter that had no microtransactions in it at all, and they're like, yeah, this just feels good. This they really realized that games before all the microtransactions used to be a lot better, and it's become so prevalent now where there's always these hooks, and even if you're not playing into the hooks of actually participating and purchasing the microtransactions, it still is shifting how the game feels and how the game plays.
Job's done.
To the point where older games now, depending on the older game you play, feel like more of a complete product than modern games, which it should be the exact opposite. It should be modern games feel bigger and like you're getting more bang for your buck, and you just aren't. Moving on, we have a game on here called Fort Sumter: The Secession Crisis, which seems like code for a Civil War game. It feels like a card game that's not particularly terrible, so I don't know how fun it would be to play a card game based on the Civil War. Civil War, not particularly a fun war to even recreate. This is $8.99. I will give it a chance and put it on the follow list, but I wouldn't be surprised if this is also a game that very few people will even purchase or try and review. Let's see. Start by drawing cards. And then we'll do this. Then we'll do this.
Feeble.
Next, we have an article from TechRouter, PlayStation Next Gen Console Tech Image Footage Leak. Some of it is a comparison video that they wanted to leak this. It was Spider-Man, I believe. The load time from getting from one area to another area in Spider-Man, and the load time is considerably less. It's like 8 seconds compared to half a second compared to 8 seconds or something. People had already talked about it, but the footage itself, that's not super surprising though, and easily manipulated, because the difference between just having an SSD in the next gen console and then selling a cheap version that doesn't have an SSD in the console could account for that kind of load times, particularly if they're using like an M2 stick SSD with some of the newest 3D NAND technology. So yeah, you can have incredibly fast load times, or you could have it programmed to have a significant amount of the data already loaded by default. There's been major improvements since even when the PS4 came out, as far as quality and how long it takes to get something done. This, and then discover a spell. It's the biggest spell I can do. Mirror entity.
I'm ready.
I'm just gonna do this. That was a waste, I think. Yeah. Next we have a game on Steam here called Unishroom, which is a infinite runner with what look like probably Unity assets. Feels like you're playing as a mushroom from Super Mario Brothers, sort of. It seems like it is leaning into that idea, but yeah. Yeah, this is just an infinite runner, nothing special. Discounted to $2.69, and English is its only language. Nothing there that deserves a follow-up. Okay. So, let me just take a moment to look at this new niche gamer site that I'm testing out as a new news source. I'm just scrolling down their page to see if they have anything that would be considered family unfriendly. No, doesn't look too bad. So here we have an article from them. Grid has been announced for PC consoles. Seems like the text probably needs to be zoomed in. Honestly, I think I probably didn't zoom in. Let's see. There's.
What time runs out on me?
That's probably better. Yeah. In the tone. Yeah. So, publisher Deep Silver and developer Codemasters have announced Grid, a return to the long-running racing series. That sounds good, and these screenshots look pretty good as just general ideas, but it is fair to say that Codemasters is up and down on racing games. Some of their racing games are good, some of their racing games are bad. This seems to be a new game for the PC, PS4, and Xbox One that's coming out September 13th. Not just a remaster or re-release of a previous Grid game. I thought Microsoft also owned some of the rights to Grid, but I don't see Microsoft being mentioned here. So yeah, it might be a good racing game, it might not. You can't really tell for certain. Let's see. Next we have a game on Steam here called Prototype Cube, which is an early access neon style game that seems to just be, yeah, experimental shoot 'em up or something. Like, I don't. It looks like it's a shoot 'em up on a Rock Band stage, a Rock Band track. But then there's also chess pieces. Yeah, this is just too random. It's $3.99, and it's probably a Chinese game, if I was to guess. Let's see. Using sword and bullet while everything is a barrage of swords. Yeah, it's just random garbage. Just random garbage. I can't describe it any other way. Yeah, and it doesn't catch my attention, so let's move on. TechRaptor has an article. Tencent acquires the Swedish game developer Sharkmob. I don't know if Sharkmob has made anything that anybody recognizes, but this is China acquiring a Swedish company, which seems weird. Sharkmob was founded in 2017 by several industry veterans coming from major studios such as Ubisoft and IO Interactive. The team has been working on an unannounced online game since then, and with the acquisition by Tencent, several new projects are also in their planning stages. I wouldn't be surprised if this is more of a case that what happened here is Sharkmob ran out of money and was not capable of funding itself anymore, and came to Tencent for with their hand out, and Tencent acquired them to continue funding the development of their game that has not been announced and has no hype around it, so would be very hard to get a funding that way with no proven record in a new company. It might also be a case of the game developers that worked at Ubisoft and IO Interactive, which would be wouldn't that be Hunt Hitman series or Square or Deus Ex series. I wouldn't be surprised if they aren't the best cream of the crop since they left those companies. Although IO Interactive, if I recall correctly, is owned by Square Enix, and everybody's leaving Square Enix, so they may have just gotten out early. Moving on, though, we have an article. Brothers: A Tale of Two Sons is coming to the Switch with co-op mode, which makes sense because you really can only play the game with co-op mode or with one controller controlling both of the brothers for the most part in the game. I did not particularly like Brothers: A Tale of Two Sons. It was overhyped, and when you looked at the writing and the story it was telling past the first couple of first two chapters, once you got to the end of the game, you had a different experience than what I think maybe a lot of journalists did, which was to only play the first hour of the game. And inherently, that's the problem with a lot of journalists, is that they review video games but only play the first hour or so. They've been called out for doing that and caught doing that so often now that they probably have do it a lot less, but it certainly wouldn't surprise me if that's exactly the way it's still being done for some sites. Let's see.
Behold the tools of creation.
Let's do this.
Behold the tools of creation.
The rightmost card.
Time runs out on me. Behold the tools of creation. Return to nothing.
It's funny because we had a whole we had really just one victory scenario that we need to do here, which is win with either the shaman or the mage, and we're having trouble with that, just playing ranked at rank 18, probably because we're approaching the end of the month and everybody is trying to play ranked and get up higher. Next we have a game on Steam called Neptune Shooter. I've already kind of committed to owning most of the Neptunia games anyways, while this is just a small Neptunia side shooter game, Bull L game. It's $3.99 discounted. I might as well just put it on my wish list, since I already, through the Humble Bundle purchase, got all the other ones. I'm not sure I'll ever get around to them. It's important to point out that the Neptunia series is a little bit fan servicey, cheesecakey, lewd, but it's rated T for teen, teen plus, so it's not really at a level of well,
I'm ready.
it's not at a level of family unfriendliness that I think that I couldn't play the entire game on YouTube. So yeah, that'll just go to my follow list, but I think that is also a that is also worth mentioning that that doesn't mean everybody needs to get that game, or that I'm recommending it. There's a Dark Crystal anime coming out on Netflix that doesn't have anything to do with video games though, so if I am going to keep Niche Gamer as a source, like TechRaptor, they're going to have columns that aren't actually about video games, which is problematic. Let's come back here and double check the daily quest. 2 more victories, Major Shaman. And I don't know where the unbalance came from, that I had 3 daily quests on the main account and I only have 1 on the European account. Let's see. TechRaptor has an article. The Dark Pictures anthology, Man of Medan, is releasing on August 30th. This is from Supermassive Games, the developers of the game Until Dawn. So the thing here is, I think Man of Medan is just the first in what they plan to be a long-running anthology of games, which is not something video games have been well known for. I mean, you could call the Assassin's Creed series an anthology, but nobody uses that word. And if it's like Until Dawn, if it's good, that would be helpful, assuming it's on PC, because then you could play something. Yeah, the game will come out for PC, PS4, and Xbox One, which is probably also another example of a company, in this case Supermassive, not wanting to do business or give exclusives to Sony anymore. And so, yeah, if Man of Medan has a similar experience to Until Dawn, maybe a little bit shorter and a little bit cheaper, then it probably will be a success. That being said, it is a horror game, so it might have some problems there. Also seems like it's a game that's going to mostly take place on a boat, so I don't know how much choice you're gonna have as far as where you can go. As I'm watching the trailer, yeah. The problem with trying to call something an anthology is the idea that now you don't really want to buy the game until all of the anthology is out, because there is this expectation and this feeling that there will just be a Game of the Year edition that has all of them. And that doesn't really happen with games that are just serialized. Like, nobody really expects for there to be a Borderlands 1, Borderlands 2, and Borderlands 3 bundle all together coming out anytime soon. Even though they did come out with the Handsome Jack collection, even then that was surprising. Not something I expected. More often you're just looking at a Game of the Year edition or a remaster of the one original individual product and any DLC. And yeah, I'm going to take an opportunity here to close some of these articles that are just redundant articles to what we've already talked about, so we can move forward. There's no reason to talk about the same thing multiple times, or even mention that other websites have the exact same information that other websites have. So going forward, I'm going to just try to attribute the one first news source I see, and then talk about the story and move forward. So moving on to the next story, Gematsu has an article. A real-time strategy game called Ancestors Legacy is coming to the PS4 and Xbox One this summer. Okay, I guess that's pretty much all we can say. It was already on the PC, so we could look it up, I guess, and see if there's possibly a review on Steam. Let's see. This Steam summer sale might roll up on me too. I wouldn't be surprised if I accidentally started the sale or did not schedule or plan for the sale. Okay, so here's Ancestors Legacy on Steam. You can see most recently it's mixed at 61%. Overall, it's 77% positive. I think Mordhau is the game to beat in games like this, and people seem to be having quite a lot of fun with Mordhau, which isn't even being recommended. Let's see. Here you have playing this game feels like a chore. The game has potential, but it lacks content and gets boring very quickly. So instead of adding content and keeping the customers happy, Ancestors Legacy is just releasing it for consoles. This seems to be kind of a typical action of a lot of small indie developers too, is that they just are releasing games that aren't enough oomph, I suppose is the word, or a word you can say about it. They're just short, they're just abbreviated, and then they want to make more money by selling it on more platforms and making ports when they should be making more content. And I don't know how you budget yourself to do both at the same time, but you probably could, because the writers and level designers could be working on one thing while the engine programmers and the porting team could be working on something else. Usually porting is handed over to a third-party company anyway, so the ports in the past at least have been terrible. So for a game like Ancestors Legacy, if the ports are terrible also, that's probably not going to be very helpful. But it probably will make the money And that's what the management wants, is more money. Speaking of ports, Niche Gamer has an article here. God Wars: The Complete Legend PC port launches June 14th. Publisher and developer Kodakawa Games has announced the release date for the PC port of God Wars: The Complete Legend. This mythical RPG is coming to Windows PC via Steam on June 14th for $29.99. So if I just click this, here is their Steam page, and I guess I put this on the follow list since it's new. Not surprisingly that the Niche Gamer site is mostly focused around niche games. Like that shouldn't really surprise too many people around. So here's, they start loading. So it seems like you walk across a world map, and then it's large groups positioned in tactical RPG fights. And frankly, God Wars does look like it is probably a DS game being ported here. So I think I've heard of this series. I don't recall though. I've just heard of too many games, quite frankly, at this point to recall if this is a good series or not. So yeah, it deserves to go on the follow list, but that's pretty much it. Let's see. See if this is enough to win. Well, that's one short. And that would be an example of a game that Niche Gamer is pointing out to me that no other website, I think, would have pointed out to me. But also, it is a hype article talking about a game that hasn't come out, and the What's on Steam Twitter feed still would have caught that when it came out. So next game we have on Steam is called Fission Superstar X, which is a shooter game. I don't know if there's anything else to say about this. It's being tagged as a roguelike, so you must get some different experience in different playthroughs. And there's some upgrades. What this seems like it is it's probably FTL with a side shooter game. So the gameplay mechanic, instead of turn-based decisions, will be more orienting your team and then getting into fights and then actually fighting. And honestly, that's probably a better move, because the final fight in particular in FTL was always a nightmare, and it displayed that it wasn't the smoothest gameplay mechanic you could have thought of. There you go. We'll take our victory. So Fission Superstar X is discounted for $13.49. It's English, French, and Spanish. So I think I'll put this on the follow list. If people like it, it does seem like it's throwing a new concept or a new combination of concepts together to make a different kind of game. Next we have a game on Steam called Princess Guardians Parody H, which clearly is a low effort RPG maker garbage game that doesn't deserve any more ideas or attention than that. It's free if you want to play it. It's English and Japanese in the interface, it says. I question if that is true, quite frankly. Gamatsu has an article here. Cell-shaded action-adventure game Baldo is coming to the PS4, Xbox One, Switch, and PC. This is a game I have not seen before. It's from a company I've not heard of either, called Naps Team. I guess there's a bit of a trailer here. Let's see what this is. That looks good. Now this is just CG cell shading, so it's not particularly a over here we'll just end the turn so we don't waste time. It's not particularly a hand-drawn or hard to animate animation style. It's just one that is underdone in favor of 3D animation or hyper-realistic 3D animation. Probably because hyper-realistic 3D animation is the feel that most games are going for. This definitely feels like a Studio Ghibli anime and a kids show more than anything, a kids game more than anything else. So it probably will be a little bit easier of a game just by the appearance, one would assume, and probably easier puzzles and more kid friendly. But this is definitely the type of game I'd like to play. That being said, it is also worth mentioning there have been some failures of the past, some games that looked very good and then didn't play very well at all, such as Rhyme, RYNME. That also had cel-shaded animation and then turned out to not really have anything, and they don't even have a Steam page yet. Okay.
I wonder.
Let's see. Give a friendly Marowak poisonous. And do that. Let's see. Next, we have a game on Steam called Fade Out, which looks like it is a VR horror game. Perhaps there's a little bit more detail than what you would normally see. There's a lot of books and items you can pick up and move. So there might be something here, but it's hard to tell. It just every day it gets harder and harder to tell the difference between a horror asset flip game and a real horror game. It requires VR. It's $7.99, which isn't too cheap for a VR game. It's probably pretty short. So I'll put it on the follow list until the day comes that I decide to just get rid of all VR games. Let's see. It's a cinematic escape room experience, which basically means it's not an actual game. Gotta play here. Gotta remember I'm playing Hearthstone also. Next we have a game on Steam called E-Ball, which is clearly just an asset flip first person shooter game with a red ball texture instead of something else. $3.74, multiplayer only, English only. Yeah, nothing more needs to be said about that game. Let's see. Niche Gamer has an article, Yu-Gi-Oh! Legacy of the Duelist Link World Link Evolution Western launch is set for August 20th. There's a video here showing off the game. Their interface looks slightly better than normal, but still I would say the Yu-Gi-Oh games have not done anything to improve the quality of what their games look like since the original launch of their first Yu-Gi-Oh game. So yeah, that's been a continued thing. Apparently there's over 9,000 cards in this new game. That it would be their main focus though, is just having the cards work properly in programming them and having the card animations look nice. Frankly, you could embrace live 2D as a new technology and redraw all the characters from Yu-Gi-Oh! Alright, let's switch over to the Asian account then, and not break this up. The idea of doing a breakup between each account makes some sense, but, you know, I don't really see a reason to do it this time.
There you are.
Let's see if
Back from your adventures.
this game screenshots are family friendly enough. I guess they are. So we have a game on Steam called Hentai Nya, NYA. It's a slide puzzle game. It's taking a weirder animation style, very extremely thin looking characters, long and drawn out. Frankly, you're at the level of anorexia at this point if this was a real human being. So not a ton of people are into that, but whatever. It's 59 cents. Again, don't fall for these slide puzzle garbage games. Only reason I wanted to point it out, or why I point out any of these games, is that yes, it seems like another cycle has happened in which at least one adult game has been approved on Steam, and we've still not really heard of anybody complaining that their game has not been approved on Steam. So they're doing something there. Guess we just need to play Hunter. So let's come over here and find our Hunter deck, and then copy this, and then hop into the Tavern Brawl. As we are still waiting for E3 to happen, it's hard to tell if anything is being affected by that as far as games coming out on Steam, but almost certainly some games are not getting announced as people are working up towards E3. That being said, E3 is every year for the past 3 or 4 years, mainstream video game journalists have said E3 is dying and that it's really not going to last one more year. So it would be ridiculous to really claim that this E3 will be the last or anything, but yeah, things are certainly changing, and big AAA publishers don't need E3, but smaller independent devs and independent publishers still do need it, and certainly if the event moved locations or made some big changes some other way, I could see there being some changes done.
Quickly.
So yeah, the thing that I can say up until this point, if I am making any kind of point, is E3 still definitely affects the release of games. Like, there are clearly examples of people not willing to release games in the time before E3. Maybe that'll stop being a factor in future years, but it's still a factor now. And it's probably smart to take this from a bigger perspective and realize that there's just too many games getting announced and released in general. It's a funny thing to say, but there's just really too much competition. And until we can fix that in some way, it will just maintain that and stay that way.
I hunt alone.
And so, yeah. If E3 disappeared tomorrow and it never existed, there would just be more games getting released on a weekly basis, which is fine, but also a problem for anybody who's trying to play the majority of the ones that are good. Moving on, we have a game on Steam called American Fugitive, which seems to be kind of like a GTA game where you're on the run. It's from Curve Digital, which is a publisher I do recognize. So I would be willing to put this on the fall list, but it is asking $15.99 at a discount. And it has supporting a lot of languages, 43 achievements. I'll put this on the fall list. It's already rated very positively, but I would have to really think about this because that is a high price for what this looks like, which is just a escape from the police simulator, which, by the way, does not work in the United States. It never works. Even if you get away initially from them, you will get picked up and arrested later. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. I had to move really fast to get to that. In fact, there was a major car chase that happened just earlier today in California. Someone trying to escape after stealing a recreational vehicle and did major damage to the vehicle and still got caught. Probably would have been caught even quicker if LA had not adopted their policy of not going after, not running and chasing at high speeds after people, because that was causing too many fatalities also. Alright. This. So at half health now. We have a game on Steam called Humorjack's Ring. Looks like it's a full motion video game. So I'm a sucker for full motion games. This doesn't quite feel like it's a brand new game because it was on widescreen. I think most cameras and camcorders would be widescreen instead of 4x3. But it's $9.99. It's English with Hungarian audio, so that's weird. So it must be originally a Hungarian game. But yeah, I'll give this one a follow. It deserves a chance, and it's certainly not asking a lot. Alright. can't do anything else besides play that.
Job done.
Here's a story I wouldn't know anything about, unfortunately. Gamma Sutra has an article. Some publishers pay streamers as much as $50,000 an hour to play new games. They could have spent on ads on Twitch or IGN, and it would have not have made as big of an impact, says GameSite CEO. So yeah, it's not super surprising that streamers, and by streamers I mean the top tier 0.1% of streamers, Ninja and PewDiePie, if PewDiePie even plays games too often. I wouldn't be surprised if they get a lot of money, but that certainly doesn't trickle down, particularly not on YouTube. Although, in all fairness, according to Veritasium, who did a video talking about how his other video went viral, he did say that he heard from somebody from inside of YouTube, and this is basically secondhand rumor information, that they're experimenting on a way in which you could give feedback about whether you enjoyed your experience watching a video. So, in theory, this would be, if you click on a clickbait title of a video and you see, and it just does a lot of stuff that makes you mad, but you sit and watch through the whole thing because it's suckering you in, you can then come back and say, no, I did not enjoy this video, this video sucked, and because of that, they are going to, if this actually gets implemented and done, they're going to try and push and suggest more videos that you would actually have positive experiences with, which might, and that's a big might, cause small-time YouTubers like me to get more views and get suggested more, which is the number one thing I would like to see happen. On the other hand, they are fighting against basically the live streams that are counts of the subscribers that somebody has. So when there is a controversy and everybody's unsubscribing from somebody like the React channels, Fine Brothers Entertainment, for instance, is an old example. They are not giving out the exact number of subscribers for people unless you have less than 1,000 subscribers. So for my YouTube channel, it will still say I have like 331 subscribers or whatever I have, but for anybody over 1,000, it will just say they have 1,000 subscribers until they have 2,000, and it will say 2,000. If they have 1,999,999 subscribers, it will say they just have 1,000,000 until they get one more subscriber and they're over 2 million. So it's just going to abbreviate the subscriber count, which also means that well, it doesn't affect likes and dislikes at the moment, but it still is very capable. People can turn off the likes and dislikes if they want to. So yeah, I don't particularly care about abbreviated subscribers. It'll hurt people like, it'll hurt small YouTubers that have slightly over 1,000 subscribers, because the struggle to get from 1,000 to 2,000 is, I imagine, just as hard to get from 100 to 1,000 is. so you're going to look like you're a small-time YouTuber for a lot longer. Meanwhile, people like PewDiePie and T-Series, who are the most subscribed people on YouTube, will stay at their abbreviated numbers with no noticeable change. This is also good though, because now that information isn't down to the penny, you can make up some lies and sell yourself to advertisers if you're getting offers for direct advertising. And you could say, oh, it says I have 1 million, but really I'm closer to 2 million. And even if you are just barely over 1 million, which is in line with what everybody else in the industry does. Everybody inflates their viewer counts and subscriber counts inside and outside of YouTube. I want to point this out. Gamma Sutra has the same article, God of War is the Complete Legend for PC launches June 14th. This tells me, because this was something I said that Niche Gamer probably was the only people that would have talked about it, it tells me that's not true. So far Niche Gamer has yet to offer anything new, so I very possibly am going to stop following them. Adding even one new subscriber or one new thing I follow on Twitter does have a tendency to throw off the balance of everything else and change what tweets I see and what tweets I don't see. Next we have a game on Steam called Zombies War, which is clearly a low effort asset flip first person shooter game. There's nothing here. It just looks super black, like there isn't a texture at all. $1.99, and English is the only language. Let's see. What do we want to do? Niche Gamer has an article here following up. George R.R. Martin and FromSoft developing a new game titled The Great Rune, and this is a rumor, so they have a title that they're putting on it. But again, if Niche Gamer is only going to be able to offer rumors and no hard stories, or no first party stories in particular, if they're just repeating what other people are saying, then I probably won't continue to follow him. Next we have a game on Steam called Tiny World, which is an RPG Maker style game. It doesn't look in any way interesting. It's $3.59 discounted in English only, although it says it has English full voice acting, which I find questionable. GameIndustry.biz has this article. Valve lets players avoid toxic people in Dota. I hate when they use the phrase toxic in Dota 2, and they charge for the privilege. An experimental avoid player feature will be included in the $9.99 Battle Pass. I assume you're getting more than just that for buying the Battle Pass. I think the way Battle Passes work in Dota 2, and I could be completely wrong about this, is that every season you're asked to buy a Battle Pass to continuously support the game, and it's probably pretty expensive, but $9.99 really isn't that much. Yeah, the seasonal Battle Pass, which typically includes cosmetic items and other pieces of optional content. The feature guarantees you won't match with the player again if you added to the avoid players list. Now, I would assume and hope that this is a feature that Valve is trying to integrate into Steam directly, because frankly, if I ran into somebody that I'm going to spend the energy and time to block, I want to block them on every single game I might play in the future, not just Dota. And avoiding players probably can't be allowed on ranked play though, but it probably could be allowed on casual play. There's certainly players on Hearthstone that if I ran into them and they just took forever, I might want to avoid them, but usually I don't even care about that. Meanwhile, this article mentions that Riot, with League of Legends, has built an entire department full of psychologists and data experts to help shepherd the community away from quote-unquote toxic players. And frankly, I hear a story every week from some game company adding more and more draconian rules for players. It's like, oh, if you're a bad player, you could be banned. Oh, if you're too good of a player, you could be banned. Oh, if somebody reports you, you could be banned. If you say, if you call somebody a jerk, you could be banned. The list just keeps growing and growing. And sure, on the list are some things that might be objectionable speech, but frankly, I still would prefer discussing an objectionable speech in the face of keeping free speech. And there's a difference between muting somebody and banning them, and if you don't have a system developed to mute somebody, that's the game developer's fault. Frankly, I think game developers in particular are too obsessed with their multiplayer communities becoming toxic and not obsessed enough with the game becoming good. As for Valve and its Dota feature, I'm hoping it's an experimental feature. That they're working on just at a top tier level. If I have to block somebody, like I remember on Xbox 360, and particularly people that played against you could message you and stuff, and maybe 2 or 3 times I got a nasty message from what I assumed was a 14-year-old who I beat, or maybe they beat me. And I mostly don't play multiplayer anyways, but it's not because I dislike the community as much as I just dislike that gameplay style. GameIndustry.biz says, furthermore, players are already reporting the system doesn't work as advertised and is apparently a preference rather than a guarantee stated by Valve. Which is almost certainly true, because I would assume everybody is playing ladder on Dota, and if you're trying to have a ranked experience, you're just going to have that ranked experience regardless, and you're going to have to compete against people that you may find objectionable for one reason or another. And frankly, people need to just realize that's how the world works, virtually and physically. Is you run into people you find objectionable, you have to deal with them, unless they do something so extreme that the police haul them off and throw them in prison. On those rare occasions. Going back to the main account because we have just a ton of news, so we're just gonna play ranked. Going back to ranked play. As far as Valve, for the 5 years I've been streaming and playing games on Valve, I've never run into a single person who's messaged me anything. So it's not really a big issue.
I will fight with honor.
Clearly, in the PC culture, or at least it doesn't seem like it is to me. And as far as Hearthstone is designed so you literally can't type anything unless you friend somebody, and only one person has ever friended me to then type something nasty to me, and I just unfriended them. And the same is also true just as the YouTube comments. Like, yes, I've gotten a few negative and just hateful comments for no reason on YouTube videos, but not a lot, frankly. Not a lot, maybe 4 or 5 after putting out 5,000 videos. Mostly, I've just had people not watch. So the crushing lack of interest is the cruelest thing people have done to me on YouTube, is simply just not watch. I'd be fine if people wanted to hate watch my channel at this point. Moving on, we have an article from Gamer Sutra here. Behind the enthralling dystopian student game Burning Daylight. And then here's a video. Is Burning Daylight the game where the guy has no pants? Yeah, it is the game where the guy has no pants and he's just like naked for the first half of the game. And then it has kind of a couple of different endings at the end, but that's about it. It's mostly just a student project. I don't even know where you play Burning Daylight, if you get it on Steam or what. Let's see if I can even find where it is. Yeah, it is on Steam. So yeah, it's tagged free to play, sexual content, and nudity. Because the guy has no pants the whole time. And you can see it's rated very positively at 80%. This is something I might show off if there's a way to censor it, but frankly, I don't think there is. And other people streamed it and didn't get in trouble, but maybe they got demonetized and I didn't hear about it. But it is kind of pointless, I think, from my perspective, to do any more coverage for a free game, even a student project. I do want to highlight student projects, but this student project should have been designed to be kind of more professional, and because it should have been designed to be more professionally focused, something you could show the professors and potential employers, they've failed to recognize a level of, I don't know what appropriateness, I suppose, would be the right word. There are just limitations as far as the topics and things that you can work on in school, usually, even in college, because you just don't know who's going to have to see it, who's going to have to read it, who's going to have to deal with it. And there's same thing for potential employers. Now, you may get hired by an employer and say, hey, I have this idea, but it's a little risque, and they may say, okay, that's great, we love that idea, but it's not the kind of thing you would want to put on your resume, and the student project is basically a resume builder. And
So many
yeah.
possibilities.
In this weird instance, they've caught the eye of streamers who would love to play a risque game, but they probably caught the ire of employers, potential employers. Let's see. Next we have a game on Steam called Sarah, You're Way Too Heavy. And this seems to be kind of an infinite climber game, but then it's a 3D model of what looks like a guy with a girl, I would say like an 8, 9, 10-year-old, holding on to the back of the father. Which I guess this is taking an experience that fathers eventually may run into, but and extending it to wall rock climbing. This is $1.99, and it's kind of a funny concept, but it really is just still an asset flip game. They just decided to do something slightly different. Now, what I would say is, as a mini game or as an event in a bigger AAA game, having somebody hold on to the back of a character is kind of an interesting idea, and something I don't think we've seen before.
Converting stored energy.
So yeah, if you were gonna have a Tomb Raider game where Lara Croft was saving a monkey or saving a child or something, that would be great. If you're gonna have a what's the male Tomb Raider character, Nathan Drake game, do the same type of idea, that would be fine too. But that would really just be a scene from it. Looking at other games this developer has made, it is just like a Chinese game. So yeah, this is clearly just a low effort Chinese developer trying to get into the asset flip business. Let's see if I do this. This.
Reporting for duty. Job done.
Next we have a game on Steam called Fakesperian Over Dramatic, which seems to be kind of a mobile game, point and click type game, although maybe it's card based. Yeah, it seems like it's a collection of several different mini games. I don't particularly like this art style, and it's 99 cents, English only. I guess I'll be a little generous and give this one a chance, but I imagine this is just a mobile game port and it's not really too interesting. You can see there's a whole bunch of resource management here. Yeah, all these resources tell me this is a mobile game, and I don't want any business with that. There, we got a victory. We'll just keep on working on victories. Next we have a game called Sage Mountain. It looks a little bit like an RPG Maker game, maybe with a little bit more of a Chinese twist to the characters. Yeah, not seeing anything too interesting in the gameplay though.
The light shall bring victory. I will
Nope.
fight with honor.
Early access, English not supported, $4.99. Korean game. Interesting. Yes, it seems like it's a Korean sort of Stardew Valley clone. But since it's not in English, I don't have any reason to put it on the follow list. Okay, let's just wait a turn. Next, we have a game on Steam called Dungeon Hunter
Is someone
Hunter
injured?
5, and this is already rated mixed. Seems like it's a card power-up hack and slash game, so I assume you get cards and then you can merge cards to get more powerful power-ups. It's free to play, but it has in-app purchases, and obviously, and lots of language supported. I wouldn't cover a free-to-play game anyways, and mixed certainly tells me that this is not something of great quality.
I must move quickly.
Converting stored energy.
I have a lot of tabs still open. TechRaptor has an article here. Outer Wilds landing on the Epic Games Store and Xbox One on May 30th. People not super happy that it's coming as an Epic Games Store exclusive, but I don't think people were particularly interested in Outer Wilds anyways, because it is kind of a space exploration game like No Man's Sky. Although, in all fairness, this looks more polished than No Man's Sky did when it first launched, so it would be a sad fate for video games in general if it turns out we had to have No Man's Sky to get a slightly better No Man's Sky to come out several years later, to get a slightly better version of that game to come out several years later. But that might be the case. Maybe when we get down to 10 years down the line, we'll have something that is very much like No Man's Sky, but is also a good game. I wouldn't be surprised if we find out that the Outer Wilds is super short. Okay. Let's see. Usually my Twitter is not a source for first party information, but in a weird case, this today is kind of special. So here's my Twitter feed, and while I did retweet that Guacamelee, the Super Turbo Championship Edition, is free on Steam till May 23rd, I already own it. What I wanted to point out is not the announcements of my streams, and geez, I guess I'm not getting too many announcements of scheduled videos coming out. It doesn't show up on this, does it? How do we find this? Following followers, tweets and replies. Here we go. Tweets and replies would be it. So I tweeted out to Cellar Door Games the game that we saw on Monday that looked like it was using the visual assets from Rogue Legacy. Cellar Door Games is the developer of Rogue Legacy, as far as I can tell. I said you should look at this, and they retweeted and replied, if I click on it, this game is still up, that it doesn't seem like they're causing any trouble, so we'll let bygones be bygones. It's not my business as a video game journalist to explain how they're eroding their copyright by allowing a Chinese developer which is, I am fairly certain what this is, to blatantly and completely rip off your game and steal your art assets. But I also haven't done the legal research, so maybe these art assets are licensable and they were just licensed by Cellar Door Games. Even at that, if they license the art assets, there's such a large amount of similarity here. You are, in my opinion, they are definitely reducing their copyright claims by not trying to enforce their copyright, which you kind of have to do. At least that's what every corporation says. That being said, maybe Cellar Door Games doesn't have a legal team or the money or anything to fight it, or maybe they're gonna pursue it and they're just telling me that it doesn't look like they're doing any harm. So to disinclude me in the conversation, which is logical and makes sense. So here's their exact reply in my replies. They say, thanks for the heads up. It doesn't look like they're doing any harm though, so for now we'll just let bygones be bygones. Fine. Like, it's not my job to protect other people's copyrights. And it's not really my job as a video game journalist to be creating the news either, but I certainly, as a video game consumer, I think we all probably have a small investment in wanting to tell game developers when their IP, their copyright content is being ripped off and used to make terrible games that are getting put on Steam Direct, because we'd like to see less terrible, low quality, and frankly illegal, potentially illegal games on Steam in general. So if we could all do our job, do our part, I wouldn't say it's a job, just if we could all do our part to keep Steam a little bit cleaner, that would be nice. Although that requires cooperation. And I didn't flag the game, and I certainly could have flagged the game. But I'm sure if I flagged the game, it would also not get any actual attention until Cellar Door Games flagged it and did a copyright claim. But I could also see Cellar Door Games not wanting to look like one of the many game developers who DMCA's another game developer and makes them, and has a Streisand effect that puts it in the spotlight. Moving on, Gamma Sutra has an article here. There is a report that Tencent and Riot are working on a mobile version of League of Legends. That certainly would make sense. Any Chinese company like Tencent would want mobile gaming versions of every game, because most of the gaming in China is mobile gaming. So, yeah. And for a game as long as League of Legends is, to my understanding, it certainly would make sense to try to play that on a cell phone instead of a PC. Let's see. Moving forward to the next article, Gamatsu has an article. You Know a Girl Who Chants Love at the Bound of This World launches for the PS4, Switch, PC on October 1st in North America. Let's see what kind of game it is. It's from Spike Chunsoft for $49.99. It's probably a visual novel, if I was to guess. Anything that long is almost certainly a visual novel. Let's see. They're calling it Adventure Games. An adventure game. There's a video here. Maybe we could see. Rated E through M+. How can the game be E through M+?
I must move quickly.
I gotta come over here to play anyways. So I assume if it's E through N+, then there's an E version for the PlayStation and it's N+ for everybody else. It's a pretty nicely looking animated visual novel game, it looks like. Yeah, it's a little bit higher quality animation. Oh, it seems like they're also giving away maybe a side shooter game that maybe that's rated E, where the main game is N+. Of course, if it comes to PC and it's N+, then I probably can't play it, can I? Is there a link to Steam?
All charged up.
This was coming to PC. Yep. And at the top it does say it's a visual novel. Moving on, Gamma Sutra has an article. THQ Nordic has gotten back into the business of acquiring things after being quiet for a couple of months as far as acquisitions, by acquiring the Gothic and Risen developer Piranha Bytes, which probably means that they will just re-release Gothic and Risen and a new franchise, Elix. I don't think Elix sold very well, so they're probably easy for acquisition. No guess, I guess, as far as what new project they might have them working on, if it is a new project and not just a continuation of the old projects. In particular, if I recall correctly, Elix was an interesting idea that was just very unpolished, and a removal of that game for sale and then remastering it and re-releasing it as a much better product could go pretty well. Let's do this first and then this. Oh man, I could have won right then. But I did win right then. Never mind. I could have won a couple of times. We're getting win streak bonuses, which is great. It's nice to have some extra time, I guess, to get some win streaks. GameIndustry.biz has an article. Valve is making its own version of the popular Dota 2 mob auto chess. I don't know why they didn't say that. After talks for collaborations are abandoned, Valve will make a competing version of Dota Auto Chess with Drodo's blessing, end quote. So yeah, they're making their own thing, which trusting that Valve would ever finish a product in a timely manner is kind of crazy. And the fact that it's improved is kind of crazy because they still have Artifact to work on, and yeah, until they get their card game either to the point where they give up on it, they really shouldn't be starting new projects. But that's Valve in a nutshell. Crazy libertarian run company with nobody in charge until somebody actually shows up and says they're in charge. Like it's kind of run by a secret organization that nobody seems to understand or know exists. And I don't mean like a secret organization outside the company, just somebody who you thought was on the same level as you were turns out to be your boss, or is told that they are to act as your boss for some reason. Gamma Sutra has an article here. The Ouya's game store will close for good in June. Razer is ending support for Ouya's digital game store, a move that comes 3 years after the physical microconsole itself was discontinued. I didn't even know that Razer made the Ouya. Well, they didn't. Razer acquired Ouya in 2015. Well, nobody played the Ouya. The Ouya is an example of one of the least successful consoles to come out in the past decade. But it is, I guess, a bit of a blast from the past. Here we have the Twitter feed for the Epic Store. They're still promoting the Epic Mega Sale between now and June 13th. And I think I just wanted to point out that, yeah, they are still promoting this sale when they're also using way too many emojis. Way too many emojis. When it's been basically nothing but failure. I think that they should have just gone quiet after this point. And they're promoting Shadow Complex, which you could have gotten free if you first installed the Epic Launcher when it first came out. And that's the only reason why I even have the Epic Launcher, is because of that one game. And frankly, I'd probably just buy Shadow Complex a second time on Steam. Or may have accidentally. I should probably investigate if it is available on Steam. I don't think it is, even now. But when they first launched the Epic Launcher, they really had no intention, as far as I can tell, to make it into a storefront, because if they had, they would have done a much better job.
Converting stored energy.
Like a much better job of working on it between the year that the launcher first launched and the year that it launched as a storefront. Niche Gamer has an article. This might be a unique article for a niche gamer. Metro Exodus is the biggest hit for THQ Nordic, but, quote, absolute majority of sales were on consoles. So people definitely did not want to buy it from the Epic Store as a counterpoint to their sales. And yeah, I get it. I totally understand that. I was right there with everybody else that if I was going to play Metro Exodus, which quite frankly at this point the answer is just no, I'm not going to play it. But I was going to really be upset having to buy it on the Epic Store. I mean, I just have 1,000 excuses in the form of 1,000 games on Steam to never use the Epic Store, and I don't think I'm too out of the ordinary there. I don't think most people have 1,000 games on Steam, but I bet most people who play PC do have at least 100, and 100 games is more than enough to not want to have to remember which storefront has which. Well, there goes my win streak. But you can't win them all, I guess. Next we have this game on Steam called Mechanic Miner, which seems like you're mining a place where there's a giant sandworm and you're supposed to build these wacky machines. And we've seen several games with these wacky machine concepts, although this is the first instance of it being specifically designed to fight against a giant sandworm and mining. But beyond that, it doesn't seem too different. This is discounted to $15.29, and yeah, I have no interest in this game. It's just not for me. These mechanism games are are designed to make the player create content for a game that doesn't have content itself. Next we have an article from Niche Gamer. Nippon Ichi Software responds to report on financial troubles and employee pay. Following a report of rumors of the Japanese developer being unable to pay its employees, they've put out this quote, "We deny rumors that NIS staff were of not being paid. Current operations of the company are not affected, which include employee salaries," an NES America representative said to Niche Gamers. Of course, NIS America may not even be getting told the full story or the truth. So asking NIS America is really asking the wrong people. But I guess maybe they got the runaround because the article does say that NIS America represents Nippon Ichi Software in the West. Let's see. The thing here, I would also say, is that it's kind of unlikely for a Japanese person who doesn't get paid to complain about it publicly. They might take them to court, and the courts may very well fine NIS quite heavily, or they might have a union, since unions are a little bit more prevalent in Japan. But yeah, the whole story feels like a kind of story you would not hear out of Japan, and you would not get corroborated out of Japan. So I think there's a good chance that the story will just end at that. Speaking of another story that's probably a non-story out of Japan, is Abe Shinzo, the Prime Minister of Japan, through their government, has put out a politely worded letter asking people to refer to him by his family name Abe, and then his given name Shinzo, in that order. Whereas up until this point, for decades, people have been calling him Shinzo Abe. Now, there's some confusion, I guess, maybe, just in the minds of Westerners. It would be, in Japanese culture, very appropriate to refer to him as Abe something. I don't know what the Prime Minister honorific would be. It probably just Abe-san would be the best honorific to use, and never speak his given name Shinzo. It shows extreme familiarity to call somebody by their given name, their first name, as it were. I don't know how that breaks down when you have family members talking to each other or talking about each other, but I guess there is a level of familiarity there where you might use their given name then. The whole thing seems kind of silly though. Like, people have been getting it wrong up until this point, and you probably should have just waited for the next Prime Minister to say, hey, can you call us, honor our traditions and say it the way it would be said in Japan, instead of the way most of the rest of the world references people's names, which is to give the given name the first name first and then the family name second. Meanwhile, if any Japanese person ever hears this, I would ask simply, has Abe fixed the economy in Japan? Has he fixed all of the problems? Is Japan running so perfectly that he has time to care about what a bunch of foreigners say or how they refer to him? It seems petty, it seems silly, and it seems beneath the level of prestige that his position holds to care if somebody has been missaying his name for a decade. Or probably the whole time. Oddly, I don't think that this was a response to the US, or if it was, I have yet to see the argument there. It might be a response to something that was said privately in the US, but I think this is more just him being weird, or Japan being weird about names.
Let's crash this party.
This is an interesting thing he's done.
Time runs out on me.
But does he have enough? Okay. Do this. And do this.
For justice.
Kill this. Do that. And do that. And then end the turn. Moving on, Gamatsu has an article. Muse Dash for the Switch and PC launches June 20th. It's a rhythm action game. Let's see if there's a video. Nope. Muse Dash first launched for iOS and Android in June of 2018. Looks very colorful and candy oriented in its palette. Okay. This. And this. TechRaptor has this article. It's called a Crowdfunding Spotlight 32-bit retro-inspired handheld. I just wanted to once again point this out and say don't support crowdfunding things. This almost certainly will not be a good device because it will be cheaply made by 3D printed products. These buttons will probably not feel right. This analog stick will probably not feel right. This D-pad will probably not feel right. And the guts behind this is probably a pretty small and simplistic device. This is the kind of thing that you would want to build yourself as a project, but then you would also have to realize that yes, it's a project, so it's going to be a prototype level quality, not a finished product level quality. The only thing that interests me is it has an accelerometer in it, so whatever device, Arduino-like device, or whatever CircuitPython-like device that this is using must have an accelerometer in the middle of it, but that wouldn't work with any of the games. And almost certainly this is a game system that, with its small 3.5 in-plane switching screen, is not going to be that good, and it's seeming like it might only be able to play Super NES games if it's talking about Mode 7. And calling it 32-bit probably hides the fact that it isn't a fully 32-bit system. This is all speculation on my part, but that's pretty much what I expect from it.
Converting sword energy. stored energy.
Reporting for duty.
So yeah, but the main thing here is don't support Kickstarter campaigns. Not for physical things in particular, but not for hard digital things either, because it just never gets reported. It never gets done well. I've never heard of a great success for Kickstarter, short of the Myst re-release, which that's kind of a unique exception to the rule. We have another article here from Niche Games. Epic Games allegedly sent a GDRP, isn't it GDPR? Personal information to the wrong people. So the European Union, you can request all the information that was given to that a company has collected on you. And I heard of a lawsuit where that actually worked out pretty well to force a game company from banning them from access to a game that because of cheating when they hadn't cheated at all. And it eventually turned out that they had banned a lot of people for cheating when they hadn't cheated at all. But yeah, I think it is GDPR, not RP. Yeah, in the article it says PR. So Niche Gamer, you're losing points here when you can't get your spelling right on the title. Like, you need an editor or a better editor, and you need to get things right. Moving on, TechRaptor has an article, Kursnaga review, You're Not Gone. This looks like a terrible game in the first place that I never want to play, so let's skip down to the bottom and see what it says. 3.0 bad. I don't think I need to go any further than that. And I don't know if I particularly need to follow a second site that reviews games, because I'm not really looking to get reviews from people. Quite frankly, if I see a review, I want to see it from somebody I personally know.
All charged up.
Let's see.
Reporting for duty.
Man, if I just had one spell in the last 3 turns, I could have won. Just don't have any. Next, we have an article from Niche Gamers. Steam Chat smartphone app has been released. I have been pushing for people to friend me on Steam, and nobody's taken me up on it, so maybe people will embrace Steam friends as more of a thing now that you could chat with your friends via your smartphone. Although for the most part I think very few people will use this. It does make sense though to have a smartphone chat app on any service, because that opens the door for you to be able to chat with somebody while not having the chat pop up on the main screen. Particularly as a streamer in Hearthstone, if I could get the chat to show up on an app and not on my main screen, that would fix a few problems. Let's see, Niche Gamer has an article here. Tiny Metal Full Metal Rumble gets a PC version. Let's see what kind of game this is.
Fight with honor.
It's a tactical placement XCOM style game with some kind of anime style animation. It's a PC version alongside the previously announced Switch version. Okay. That's pretty much all we can get from that, though. Next, we have a game on Steam called Cheeky Beetle and the Unlikely Heroes, and this looks like it is a Bomberman / Pac-Man style game. Yeah, I'm not seeing enough here that would make this interesting enough to play. It's single player only. It's $1.99. If I am gonna play about Bomberman clone, it would have to be a really good Bomberman clone. Let's look at this developer, Rocksoft Limited. Yeah, they've got nothing else that they've made, so yeah, that doesn't inspire a level of confidence.
Reporting for duty.
Let's see. Niche Gamer has an article here. A Aeterno Blade 2. I guess that's how it's spelled. Aeterno. I don't know how you'd pronounce that. It launches in fall of 2019, and P-Cube has picked up the publishing rights. It's an action puzzle platformer that will include a Windows, PC, PS4, Switch, and Xbox One release. Is there any video of it? No, not yet. Well, this is video, isn't it? Yep. Looks like a JRPG. Although, maybe it's more like a hack and slash platformer. Yeah, I guess it is a hack and slash platformer. And does not look terrible, although I would like to do some research and see if Aeterno 1 ever came out on PC or when it came out at all. So I'll research that game a little bit more. Let's see. Gamatsu has an article. The House of Fate Morgana Dream of the Revenants edition launches May 28th for the PS Vita and June 11th for the PS4. Interesting. This is probably going to be one of the last 100 Vita games to ever be released. I wouldn't be surprised if this is a visual novel that's only coming out to the West. It is tagged visual novel. No, it's only coming out, I suspect, not to the West, but to the East, to Japan.
I don't have enough mana.
To battle!
For justice!
Just wait. I'm not attack yet. Gamatsu had the same article, Tiny Metal, Full Metal Rumble, coming to PC this summer. Getting a lot of hype articles. This would be the time to get hype articles, though, is right when the game is E3 is about to happen. You gotta play this first.
For
And then they
justice!
changed my weapon on me.
To battle!
They should have attacked, I guess. Let's see. Niche Gamer has an article. Punchline PC port launches May 23rd. Punchline, I think, is an anime visual novel, but also there was an anime version of it. Let's see. It has something to do with Ghost. Is this the one where the ghost is creeping around in a lewd way in an area? It's from the creators of Zero Escape, so it has a name behind it, and the anime might be more lewd than the game is. Haunt a house full of girls while you solve puzzles. Yeah, so it is a little lewd, I bet. So we'll have to see what the rating on that one is, if I could cover it.
To battle!
Let's see.
For justice!
Just get rid of that.
Job done.
Let's see. Next, we have an article from Niche Gamer. Utawari Mono Zon, Western release date set for September in 2019. From NIS America. So, NIS is still publishing games. Let's watch this trailer. Well, I'm gonna watch this trailer off screen to see what the game is, just in case.
For justice.
Oh, the trailer doesn't look. It's a hack and slash game in 3D graphics, is what it is. All right. I thought it might be something completely different, but yeah, nope. It's just a Warriors style hack and slash game. Nothing wrong with that. Although arguably there's a very limited number of Warriors style games that I want to actually play for all the button mashing it requires. Gamma Sutra has an article. Backward compatibility and streaming is key to the next gen strategy. Which I get backward compatibility as something that Sony could do for the Sony Entertainment, but unless they are getting a lot of help from Microsoft, I don't see how they are going to be able to do streaming any better than they do streaming now. And I would argue at the moment streaming is not key to the PlayStation 4's strategy, so to make it key is interesting. So here they have a picture for the next gen. What we have said so far, it will have an all-new CPU, GPU, no doubt. It will have an SSD. It'll be backwards compatibility. Backwards compatibility for the PS4 alone would actually be incredibly small amount of games. It needs to be also backwards compatible with PlayStation 1 and 2, and it would be nice if it was backwards compatible with PlayStation 3.
For justice.
To battle.
But that's less likely to happen.
Converting stored energy.
It's gonna have support for 8K screens. I don't think it really is going to be rendering 8K resolutions. It'll have disc support and 3D audio. What they haven't talked about is a date, a price, any of the games, any of the user experience, or any of the countries it's rolling out. Like all the big important things they haven't talked about yet. But I mean, you certainly have time too, because they could announce the next thing, the next. They could announce the next generation PlayStation the day after Microsoft's E3 presentation and give out a ton of information if that's what they want to do. Here's another little slide. They're saying the next generation will still be using Blu-ray. No attempt to push a improvement above Blu-ray. I don't know if there really are any lasers out there, frankly, that could do something so significantly better than what a Blu-ray disc can do. I know that 8K Blu-ray discs have got more layers, I'm sure, and maybe a smaller spacing, but we're hitting probably the level of wavelengths that we can reach with a laser without it becoming a extremely expensive device.
Reporting for duty.
And again, I'm just closing articles that that are repeating the same thing we've already talked about. GameIndustry.biz has an article, Inside Station F, the grander ambitions of Ubisoft. Ubisoft's focus on emerging technology from blockchain to VR points to something bigger from the French games giant. This is kind of more of a inside baseball hype article because they're just interviewing somebody from Station F, which is clearly the Skunkworks project division of Ubisoft, funding the development of things that are not out and not likely to be out anytime soon. And yeah, a lot of people are working their way towards supporting things like VR and AR and blockchain, but that doesn't mean VR, AR, or blockchain will actually succeed. Hey, we got somebody on the chat.
Okay then.
Phoenix777 says, hey, I remember way more people in the live chat. Hey. Yes, it takes me a second to read the chat, sorry. And it probably takes you a second to catch up too to hear that I read the chat. Yes, for a brief moment in my YouTube career, there was a lot more people in the live chat for a brief moment, but just this stupid YouTube algorithm, frankly, it doesn't announce when things come out, and because of that, there is a lot of times where streams that used to get 20 people guaranteed from the get-go now get 0 views, and I don't care enough to go through the route of clickbaiting people or going down the path of desperation to get people to watch. Frankly, when you have the YouTube suggested algorithm working against you. So yeah, I'd wish more people were on the chat. I wish more people were watching. It's not happening right now. And there's not a good way to fix that that I know of. All I can do is ask people to subscribe, click the notification bell. When you click the notification bell, I think there's a drop-down box next to it where you have to say, actually, I want all the notifications and not just some of the notifications. I know that's ridiculous, that you have to click the bell and then click the bell again. But that does seem to be exactly what's going on. Follow me on other services, perhaps. Like follow me on Facebook or Twitter and you might get more notifications, but sometimes that doesn't work either. And get your friends to subscribe to my channel, even if they're not going to watch. I mean, I can chill that stuff, but that's about all I can do. Phoenix says it wasn't say you were live for over 2 years. That's been your experience. That's been the experience for a lot of people. That's what YouTube is doing. It's screwing around and not sending out notifications. What I can tell you is that I am subscribed to myself and I am getting notifications when I go live every single time. So I've done as much as possible to get it to go live. If people are have actually gone through the way too large effort of clicking the bell correctly to get all notifications. But nobody's done that, clearly. And I've lost views clearly because of that, and everybody's lost views. And yeah, YouTube's just ruined the careers of many a YouTuber, big and small, because of their ridiculous actions. I'm sure people have gotten suggestions to watch Jimmy Fallon and to watch The Rock or Will Smith. yeah, there is an RSS feed in the description down below too. If you follow that RSS feed, you'll get notifications through an RSS reader. If you don't want to follow on Twitter or Facebook. But yeah, YouTube's just screwing everybody over. Both the creators and the consumers of content.
Don't test me, child. Reporting for Tucson.
Phoenix says, when will I move to Twitch? Because Twitch is no better, quite frankly. I do have a Twitch channel. There was an automatic service that was moving my videos over from YouTube to Twitch. That automatic service used an API that got shut down. During that period in which it was automatically putting videos on Twitch, they were not getting any views. Because nobody wants to watch a pre-recorded video on Twitch. And frankly, as far as I can tell, nobody wants to watch a small-time streamer on Twitch either. It seems like it's very much focused on just the top-tier people. Like, I have certainly evaluated and looked at a lot of different services, but the vast majority of people are still on YouTube. So if YouTube would just promote my videos in a fair and balanced way, then they would get views. Whereas if I go to Twitch, they still would never get any views because I mostly make pre-recorded footage, and I do not have any intention or desire to be a 100% Hearthstone streamer that's going to play Hearthstone every day for 8 hours. Because that's just too much Hearthstone in my life. And that would be the only thing that would get promoted on Twitch is the live streams.
Uther versus Rexar.
And I haven't seen any major YouTuber actually succeed in moving 100% of their content over to Twitch. They move some of their content over to Twitch, and then they leave some of it on YouTube. And usually they have to be a huge, big-time streamer in the first place to even get that level of success. Moving on, we have an article from TechRaptor. The action RPG Oninaki launches for the PS4 and Nintendo Switch August 22nd in Japan. Let's see. Can we see a picture of what this game looks like? Yeah, it's an action RPG game. Is there anything special about this game? Nope, not really. It's just a standard Japanese action RPG. Another JRPG to go on the potential list of JRPGs I might want to cover one day. Let's see. It will also launch for the PS4 and the Switch and PC in the summer, so it's not a Japanese only release. I am still considering, like, as long as it's somewhat doable that people can import games from Japan, I think that it does make sense to still talk about Japanese launches and releases. So many Japanese games get announced to come out in Japan, and then a month or 6 months or a year later come out in the West. So I think it still has some relevancy, even to a outside of Japan, a Western audience. I guess there's a slight difference between those two classes of people, or categories of people. But yeah, here's Oninaki on Steam, and I could put it on the follow list, although frankly I try to avoid putting things on the follow list until they actually have a pure release date. Let's see. Phoenix says, well, I think there's no hurt in trying because you have no views here. I already have a Twitch channel that has no views on it too, so I did try. I tried for as long as it was reasonable. And it's not 100% accurate. My channel has over 330,000 views in total, so there's something there where it going back to Twitch after trying a second time. That channel, I think, probably has less than 100 views. Like, there's no hurt in trying something new, absolutely, but at a certain point doing the same thing over and over again and just jumping between Twitch and YouTube is not a solution. The bigger solution will be finding a new service that people would be willing to jump from YouTube to. So if there was a completely new service like DLive or something that actually looked like it was going to succeed and not fall apart. Unfortunately, there have been a dozen services that have come out and people tried to jump onto them and then they've fallen apart because they just can't afford the video streaming hosting costs. But if the community of YouTube, if the viewers of YouTube went to something new, I would definitely join it and try to move it on it. But right now, you have Google and YouTube on one side, Amazon and Twitch on the other side, and neither one of these large corporations are going to work for small-time creators. They just don't care about them. Frankly, there probably needs to be a service where you get ostracized or kicked out if you become too big. And it's only small-time creators and more niche creators. There's certainly things that if my channel was making any money I could do. Like if I could afford to hire an artist to make thumbnails and a video editor to maybe make some supercuts, that would probably help a lot. Or just having somebody that would schedule videos instead of me doing that would help me make more content. But the way I make content is also a problem with YouTube, because YouTube does not like when you put out a video that does really well and then your next video comes out and it doesn't do as well as the previous video. So when you're making when you're covering multiple games, if I'm covering I think not Dungeon Keeper, but let's say I was covering Dungeon Keeper right now and I was covering Hearthstone. If Hearthstone's really popular and it gets a lot of views and then Dungeon Keeper episode airs right after it and it gets no views, well then they assume that Hearthstone was just a fluke and stop suggesting videos. And that would only work, the only way I could work around that is if I had 5 different channels where I was releasing 5 different series of 5 different games, and I'm not willing to do that, and I'm not willing to reduce the amount of content I put out. And I put out a lot still, even though I'm taking this year in particular as a vacation year of sorts and not overworking myself and making a lot of content. I'm still releasing at least 2 games on every weekday on top of Hearthstone, so at least 3 episodes a weekday.
I will fight with honor.
Where in previous times it was as many as 6 episodes a weekday. And Hearthstone comes out on the weekends too. I already talked about this article, but Game Sutra says God of War sold over 10 million copies. So that's something. Yep. I'm still trying to get down to the level of figuring out what a great amount of sales is, but 10 million is almost certainly a great amount of sales.
Converting stored energy.
Here we have an asset flip game on Steam that is insane looking. It's called Sometimes to Deal with the Difficulty of Being Alive, I Need to Believe There is a Possibility That Life is Not Real. What's funny here is if this is not a translation from a different language, this is just by far the longest title of a game I've seen so far on Steam. What language is this? It's just English. It's 99 cents and it's seems like it is just random assorted craziness. And certainly I would in my youth have been suckered for a random crazy looking game that particularly as a streamer might get people to watch. But I think everybody's wised up to that trick by now and nobody is going to seriously try and get views on a low effort ridiculous game. Gamma Sutra has an article here. Playtika launches a casual games division. The social casino game company Playtika is now making casual games, probably because they can't sell casino games in as many places as they could before. Playtika is out of Tel Aviv, interesting enough. We'll have to wait and see what actual games they make, though.
Photonic burst.
Trying to get through all of these articles. I still have quite a few. Phoenix says, hey, well, I gotta go. I just stopped by to see how you are. Thanks for stopping by. Thanks for chatting. Every time you chat on chat, that helps a lot too. That promotes this live stream as being more active.
Job's done.
Thanks.
Things may be changing for YouTube too. However, the rumor is, and I talked about this earlier, that they're going to start asking you whether you enjoyed a video or not. So a lot of the hate clicks and clickbait titles may start disappearing, and that might very well change the play field for competition on YouTube. Moving on, GameIndustry.biz has an article. World War Z closes its first month with almost 2 million units sold, which really makes it quite the sleeper hit. Saber Interactive sleeper hit has doubled sales since its launch week. And I've heard World War Z as a Left 4 Dead style game is not terrible, particularly when it's tied into a book series and movie series, of which there is no book or movie coming out anytime soon, based on the 2013 movie.
Let me think.
I'm about to lose. I made it to rank 16 and now I'm back to rank 17. Maybe I should have stopped while I was ahead. I wouldn't be surprised if World War Z got even up to 4 million. I doubt it's going to get up to 10 million, though. Next we have a game on Steam called Age of Darkness Die Sucked Knocked Relic, which sounds like a German game, but looks like it's just an RPG Maker game by the visuals. $2.69, English and German, yep. You don't see a lot of German games. I don't think games development in Germany is super prevalent. Let's see. Maybe we should try something different. Let's try Warlock. GameIndustry.biz has an article. Metro Exodus recoups all costs and boosts Q1 revenue at THQ Nordic. Net sales spiked 158% at the publisher thanks to the 4 games shooter and coffee stain satisfactory.
Gul'dan versus Rexar.
Remember, the reason why they're making so much money, it seems like to me, is because they're getting paid up front for what is very possibly the total lifetime of the sales of Metro Exodus on the Epic Store. So they're going to have a sharp decline in income in the next quarter. But I also suspect THQ Nordic might be just doing some shenanigans with its finances also to hide that. Let's see, and THQ Nordic did just acquire another studio on the back of that success.
Job's done.
Let's see. Next we have a game on Steam called Death Jump, which is a platforming mobile looking game. It's rated positively by 11 people. Old school graphics, as if that's something to sell your game on. This game seems too simplistic. It's $1.19 discounted. It's English and Russian. Yeah, seems just like it too simplistic of a style of game.
Job's done.
I can't do that.
Next we have a game on Steam called Secrets of War, which seems like it's a stealth game. Looks more like a mobile graphics though, not something that's zoomed in enough on the camera for the target audience of a PC game. Yeah, this feels like asset flips. This feels very generic. The buildings all look the same. Looks like they're just narrow street ways. $9.99, English only is the language. Nothing impressive there. Okay. Wanted to play this and then do that. There we go. Next we have a game on Steam that's almost certainly a troll game called Fat Dude Simulator. And yeah, that's a fat guy running in an extremely dark image. It's just in his underwear. Yep. 84 cents discounted. This is clearly a dark screenshot syndrome asset flip low effort game. Let's see. Let's do that. And that. And
Is this really necessary?
I didn't play that quite right. I should have done that earlier.
Job's done.
Next we have a game on Steam called Herman 2, which looks like an extremely low effort MS Paint climbing platforming game for $4.99, which is extremely expensive for the amount of quality that I'm seeing here. Don't need to mention that any further. Gamatsu has an article. Mystery visual novel Fatal 12 is coming to the PS4 on August 8th in Japan. I assume then if it's only coming out for the PS4, then it would at best come out on the PS4 in the rest of the world. But apparently it first launched worldwide for PC with English and Japanese subtitles on March 2018. So it already has a Steam page. It's just getting a console release, which that's certainly something that did not happen in the old days. Like you definitely did not have console games going, well, PC games going to console games. You had it the other way around. Alright, and we can see here for the Steam version of the Fatal 12, it is rated very positively as a visual novel. Gotta remember that's what it is. It seems like it's probably around some kind of fate, murder mysteries concept. I think I remember this game. So this is a game that should be on my wish list at this point, but it's probably on my fall list, so I'll have to do some follow-up to see where it is.
Get in there, fight, maggot!
Come over here and play.
Job's done.
Major Nelson occasionally tweets out weird games that I don't recognize, and he tweeted out this game for the Xbox called Marianne Tavern Story Patty and the Hungry God. I don't know if maybe this is a translation of another game, because I saw something somewhat by that name. It's a turn-based RPG where you cook, eat, and collect and fight and explore. So I want to do some more research on that off stream and see if there's a PC version of that. Niche Gamer has an article here. THQ Nordic greenlights a new AAA project from 4A Games. This seems to be no real details here. So 4A Games from the Metro series developer, which wouldn't that just be, okay, we've greenlit a new Metro game because Metro Exodus succeeded? Like, that would be the most likely and logical turn of events, wouldn't it? So that would be my speculation on the case. We already talked about that. Gamatsu had the same article that Niche Gamer had about the unannounced 4A games. I don't know, I think I'm gonna probably give Niche Gamer just a week or two and
My magic will
see if they have anything new or unique to say. If they don't, it seems like they're mostly just repeating what Gamatsu already says, which is the problem. Is between the 3 or 4 news sources I have, I'm looking for a new news source that would have something that the others don't have, which is less likely to ever be the case. On Steam, here's that game. I guess I didn't have to do too much research in the first place. Marianne Tavern Story Patty and the Hungry God is out on PC as much as it's out on Xbox. It looks like it's a RPG game with the added elements of cooking food. And I can only put this game on the follow list because frankly it doesn't look unique enough as a RPG to catch my eye. It's $17.99 discounted. It's English and Japanese in the interface and no full audio.
Put this apple on your head.
So I can have a little bit of hope for it, but that's about it. Let's see.
Get in there and fight, maggot!
I was hoping it would hit that one.
Out of time.
Gamma Sutra has this article. Sega is going to resume the sales of Judgment in Japan following the actor who the main character was based on. They've now changed the voice and the face of that character, testing positive for cocaine, I believe, which is a big deal in Japan. It's been a while. This controversy happened in March, and Taki was arrested on suspicion of using cocaine. Let's see, most people bought the game that could get their hands on it, so as much as it might embarrass the public image of Sega to have an actor caught doing what most people in America assume all actors would be doing, it didn't seem to really affect the general populace, because 97% of the stock on the shelves were purchased either through importers, people outside of Japan buying it, or from people in Japan buying it, knowing that the game, this first release version, will be very rare and worth something potentially in the future. So, yeah. But particularly the Japanese version, I imagine, would be worth a little bit more than the Western version. I don't know if there was a Western version out at the time. Alright, well, let's just transform into something.
And you.
Okay. And do that. Do that. GameIndustry.biz has an article. Riot forms a governing body for Scholastic Esports. Riot Scholastic Association of America to oversee high school and collegiate League of Legend competitions. Quite frankly, I don't think colleges or high schools should be running League of Legend competitions. Frankly, but I also don't think that colleges should be running football competitions or basketball competitions or any sports competitions. I think colleges should be about mental educational things only, and perhaps there needs to be special athletic colleges for people who can only excel at athletics, because even the athletes in regular colleges seem to not really get a good education. So combining the two is not really, in my mind, educating the populace in any way or doing any good. It's just bringing in money to the colleges, which should not be something that's a goal, or not in that way as a goal.
Job's done.
Particularly when you look at the current scandal that's happening as far as rich people lying and bribing people to help their kids lie to get into colleges, saying they're on sports teams that they aren't on to get in. Next we have a game on Steam called They Came From the Sky. This looks like it's kind of a boring arcade game that's got some polish here. It's not black bars on the edge, but when you look at the video, it's just you're assumedly controlling this UFO going backwards and forwards, trying to get as many humans
That's incredible.
as possible sucked up into your
That was a mistake. That's
into
incredible.
your UFO. Yeah, that's what I was trying to say. Alright. Business Insider, not a news source I usually follow, has an article. From Tetris to Tomb Raider, here are all 24 games that have been made into the World Video Game Hall of Fame. The selections and options were weird, to say the least, in as far as what you could, what was nominated, and the difference between the age of the nominations. Like, some games were pretty new, some games were extremely old, and it really felt like you were comparing apples to oranges. So let's just go down this list. Doom was inducted in 2015, the original Doom, a game that makes me motion sick. Then Pac-Man was also introduced in 2015, okay, and then Pong in 2015 makes sense, and Super Mario Brothers makes sense, and then Tetris makes sense, but also World of Warcraft, which makes a little less sense. And then GTA 3 was added in 2016, so was Sonic the Hedgehog. Clearly Sonic the Hedgehog should have been inducted before GTA 3. It has more relevance. Let's see.
I thank you.
Let's go ahead and squelch this guy.
Job's done.
What else have we got? Space Invaders in 2016, Legend of Zelda in 2016. If they had just gone through a chronological list of video games and said, hey, we're just going to introduce all the games in the 80s that we feel like should be in the first round of selections, would make a lot of sense. And then, like, next year they introduce all the games that should be in from the 90s, and then next year you do all the games from the 2000s, and each year you then add some more from the 80s that you felt were second tier. But it is very much apples to oranges. You know, I'm just scrolling down. Colossal Cave Adventures, for example, from 1976 being introduced in 2019, compared to Tomb Raider. Like, those, I've never heard of Colossal Cave Adventures. Solitaire, it really is crazy. Solitaire compared to Mortal Kombat 1, compared to Mario Kart. All those games, with maybe the exception of Colossal Cave Adventures, feel like games that should have been introduced. I don't feel like any of them didn't deserve to be inducted into the Hall of Fame. It's just the timing of it, and also some of the listings of things that were potential candidates that got rejected, which, quite frankly, anything submitted should be accepted. It's really hard to make a justification that something doesn't deserve to be in the Hall of Fame, unless it's just something nobody has heard of. And I guess you've probably jumped that point when you are including Colossal Cave Adventures, unless that's just some blind spot I've never heard of. Moving on, Niche Gamer has an article here, and this might be a unique article for Niche Gamer. Song lyrics were censored in Forza Horizon 4, not surprising. They got this information from NeoGAF, which is not a very good source for information. Let's see. User notes words related to drugs and religion have been removed from select songs within the last month. In addition, they initially believed there was no indication of these altercations occurring in the changelongs. From words like high to stardusted hazy taken completely out of context, as if they're supposed to relate to drugs, and worse than this, the word God of all things has been completely removed from Never Say Die by Severches.
So many possibilities.
Let's see. So, yeah. People certainly are, game developers in particular, are certainly being a lot more careful as far as trying to not have any lyrics in games that will come back and cause them any kind of trouble, because there have been two or three instances of in-game music having something that was complained about, usually by mainstream video game journalists and not actual people that bought the game and played the game. It really doesn't make a lot of sense, in my opinion, to censor any of the music. If you chose the music to play, the music should just play. Maybe if there's a radio edit as an option, you would play the radio edit, because the idea is that the music playing, particularly in racing games, is playing over the radio. But yeah, it seems silly to say the least.
Coming through.
Okay. Well, let's just charge this guy up and then we'll win.
I strike.
There we go. We only have a few more articles, so I'm just gonna stop playing on the win streak bonus. That would be a good point to end this month if I don't play any more ranked at 16. If I could get up to 15, it would be nice, but whatever. GameIndustry.biz has an article. Streamer Tfue, I assume is how that's pronounced, Tfue, sues the esports organization for illegal operation as a talent agency. Turner Tinney claims FaZe Clan did not act in his best interest and withheld 80% of his earnings from streaming, which is a ridiculously high amount of money for people to be withholding. I've seen a lot of people talking about this, and I wouldn't be surprised if this is exactly the kind of shenanigans that are happening to a lot of big streamers and medium tier streamers, and clearly he's seems to be owed things if what he's claiming is true, and hopefully he gets the justice he deserves. Moving on, I really haven't investigated the story too much, and it really just needs to go to courts. Niche Gamer has this article. Why IIK dev responds to claims of plagiarism. Now, I saw this game and put it on the follow list when it first was announced, and it seemed like even then they were stealing some looks and some characters from a website called Tested, and Adam Savage bought the rights to it quite a few years ago. And there was this character, this guy that looked a lot like this called Will Smith that worked there. So it felt very weird. But that doesn't have anything, I guess, to do with this one. Earlier, they reported that YIK, a postmodern RPG, had plagiarized lines from a popular Japanese author named Haruki Murakami. Now the game's creator, Andrew Allenson, has responded to our contact, which I saw this on several other sites too, claiming this, that they plagiarized. They say, quote, YAK contains quite a few homages to the writer Haruki Murakami. Our intent was to include little nods to Murakami's lesser known works as tributes within the game. The tributes served a narrative function, end quote. And then there's another quote, as the game revolves around themes of broken reality, much of what the protagonist Alex experiences colored by the lens of fond and strong memories. He added, we picked out a couple of novels, films, and video games to become the subject of Alex's memories that influence his reality in game through the illusions we talked about. Some of these appear as more subtle homages to other authors like Chuck Palahniuk, Thomas Pynchon, David Mitchell. So these are also people that they probably plagiarized from. Since it looks like people are asking specifically about references to After Dark, let me explain my intentions as best as I can. End quote. I guess we could go on further, but clearly they're admitting guilt but denying plagiarism. Let's see. I don't think that would stand, quite frankly. There's a difference between taking a reference, which would be, frankly, a word, and taking many sentences, even 3 sentences, and copying it. Like, even one sentence without rewriting that is plagiarism by most definitions. So here's the game on Steam, and you can see it's at mixed reviews. And what's weird here is this game did look like it might have been interesting if they hadn't gone the lazy route. What you would have wanted to do is you would have wanted to have maybe a single word reference, not entire sentences. And it looks like they took entire sentences. And I'm sure if we go down here, this game is what happens when a game director is surrounded by yes men. Let's see. Someone's been waiting 3 years since the announcement in 2015. Be like being talked down to in bad RPGs and tedious combat. Let's see. It's desperately trying to be something deep and meaningful, but fails. So none of these negative reviews are even talking about the plagiarism, and it's still mixed. So that's not even it. Now, if Steam were to come in and say this is an off-topic review bomb, I would have to heavily disagree. Admitted copying to the level of what most university and high school professors would call plagiarism is definitely something that you will experience in this game. So you reviewing it negatively is an experience you would have. So yeah, I'm gonna remove that from the follow list. I don't see a reason to fund and support plagiarists. I take that pretty seriously. I would take it seriously if somebody was to copy the content of my videos and what I'm saying, because I put a lot of work into the content I make, regardless of whether it's good quality or not. Moving on, we have a story from Niche Gamer. Character customization has been confirmed for Pokemon Sword and Shield, so you don't have to play as the Scottish lass, although basing it on the fan art and the memes, I think a lot of people probably will play as the Scottish female character. But yeah, there's some kind of level of customization. on it. I don't know if this maybe you're only customizing the way she dresses. Yeah, I guess that's the way she dresses. There is a male character too, I think you can select, but I think the face and maybe the hat and the backpack will probably stay somewhat consistent. Let's see. Apparently there's some kind of controversy around a Chinese designed t-shirt that made its way into the game. Character customization was in Pokemon Y and X. I didn't realize that. And continued in Sun and Moon. I haven't played a Pokemon game in a very long time. I'm not sure I've played any Pokemon game all the way to the end, actually. Here's another story. Wizard of Labyrinth Lost Souls was rejected from Good Old Games. This would be the second story this year of Good Old Games rejecting a game that probably deserves to be on their storefront. Let's see, the quote from the XC Twitter account is, "We are interested in putting Wizard of Wizardry on Good Old Games, but it is a curated platform and Wizardry did not meet store requirements. You can pick it up on Steam or the Humble Store." So yeah, looking at this game, it's a dungeon crawler. It's not horribly too bad. Maybe it has too many anime girls, elf girls in it for Good Old Games. That might be the case. There might be some adult content in here that they don't like. Let's see. But yeah, you can get it on Steam and you can get it on Humble Bundle if you're interested. One more article. Oh wait, this is just a follow-up. Indie game Yik appears to directly plagiarize Japanese author Haruki Murakami. And I don't think you would get away with this or get caught. I mean, I think you'd totally get caught. Let's see. Through the eyes of the high-flying bird, we might take in the scene from midair. Through the eyes of a high-flying bird, we might take the scene from midair. So it's entire sentences copied here. Apologies for showing a nippleless character. Yeah. This is plagiarism. This, like, one sentence here. Like, even if you just stopped here, through the eyes of a high-flying bird, that's enough for plagiarism. Didn't change a single word. You could rewrite this and make it be an homage. You could have written this sentence as, we take the scene from midair, and I'm gonna accept this. I'll play a challenge a friend while we're here. It could say, we could take the scene in from midair through the eyes of a high-flying bird, or we took in the scene from midair through the eyes of a high-flying bird, and that would at least move the sentence around. It's still probably not good enough. But then what you could do is run synonyms through it. There's a lot you could do to just get away from plagiarizing directly. You could say, instead of saying eyes, you could say, through the perception of a high-flying, replace high-flying for soaring, and it says nightbird, so you could have called it evening albatross. So, through the perception of a soaring evening albatross, we take in the vista from the atmosphere. from the waves of the atmosphere, and you can add things too. Like that would be drastically different than just copying and pasting. Now, ironically, me having to rant about plagiarism is something I never really dealt with in school, because, quite frankly, I never really did any of the writing assignments, and yet they still let me graduate. Go figure. Like, I pretty much didn't do any of them, and if I did do them, I would just write as spewing off the top of my head things. I would have never written or read or rewritten any kind of essay or anything. I think my teachers in particular were just happy to get rid of me, so yeah. So I potentially, on most assignments, you'd have 70% of the points going to towards the choose a answer. How do you say that? Multiple choice answers, and then 30% going towards an essay answer, and I would just get 100% done, or close to 100% right on the multiple choice answers, and then not do the essay, or do a very sloppy, low effort essay, and then they'd give me like 10 points out of 30 on the essay, and just be like, whatever. A lot of times I think the teachers just wanted 500 words, and my problem was never going long, it was just making sense or being well thought out. There we go. Just gonna end the turn there. And that brings us to the Humble Bundle store itself. There is a tiny build bundle. Remember, the Steam Summer Sale is coming on, and you can support me by friending me on Steam and gifting me either a gift card now or a game during the summer sale, or you could give me a game now off my wish list, or just a game you'd like to see me cover. But I'd say save your money and wait to sell. Also, if you have a Steam code and you direct message through Twitter that to me, that would be appreciated. There's also a link to Patreon if you just want to give me money directly and cut out YouTube, which would be great since YouTube's not paying me anything. Yeah, people are up in arms that T-Phase is not making any money for the content he's creating. Hey, I'm not making any money for the content I'm creating. All the small-time YouTubers with less than 1,000 subscribers are making exactly zero. But anyways, this Humble Bundle from Tiny Build, if you pay $1, you'll get a Steam code for Punch Club, The Final Station, Diaries of a Space Janitor, and Speedrunners. Some of those are slightly interesting, but not amazingly interesting to me. If you pay more than the average of $7.66, you'll get Hello Neighbor, Streets of Rogue, Early Access Cluster Truck, and Party Hard High Crimes DLC. Again, Hello Neighbor and Cluster Trucks may be a little interesting. If you pay $15, you get Party Hard 2 and Graveyard Keeper. I've heard Graveyard Keeper was slightly interesting, so I want to look into that a little bit more and see where the interesting, that didn't trigger the action. I really thought it would. This. Yeah, Graveyard Keeper seems to have more story than what I thought it would have. I thought it was going to be more like a Plants vs. Zombies style game. And so then that just brings me back to my Twitter feed, and I'll see if there's anything new worth mentioning. Probably not, and we'll just leave it for Friday. And once this game is done, which it probably is pretty close to being done, we'll wrap up the stream. I did really screw up today. It is hard to say I didn't, because I had like a 40-minute at most stream for the first recording, and then we have another stream that's gone on a much longer amount of time. Then I could have broken it up a lot more. A couple more games came out while we were streaming, but nothing important. E3 is less than a month away. Jacksepticeye is doing some kind of charity stream that YouTube Gaming retweeted. I wonder if YouTube Gaming's Twitter will shut down. I bet it won't. They're shutting down YouTube Gaming's app and its separate website. Let's see. Libretto put out a statement here. This is interesting. Public service announcement. FB Alpha as a project is dead as far as all other contributors are concerned. All devs bar one have moved to a new project called Final Burn Neo. This is already on the build bot. Thanks to Barbu Dreadmon. RIP FB Alpha, long live Final Burn Neo. There is some legalese going on. Why did he challenge me if he didn't have a challenge a friend? I'm just gonna decline that because I don't want to play anymore today. Yeah. The Capcom 2-player joystick that's being sold is running emulated games using FB Alpha, which it shouldn't legally be allowed to do that. And there was some weirdness on who owns the rights to what there. So I think what has just been announced by Libretto is probably true, and probably evidence that there has been a schism in an open source platform program, which that happens all the time. So FB Neo, probably the new emulator to use, but we shall see if it's an all new code base and if they have to write everything from scratch starting over again, or if it's just a new port of Final Burn, which was the original version of the game, and FB Alpha was a port or an addition to that. Anyways, that's going to be it for this stream. Pretty good stream. More successful than most. People got on the chat. One person got on the chat and chatted with me. Maybe he was talking about my YouTube channel, which is kind of a sore spot of just not having any views. So, I mean, I can't really do anything about it. And people give suggestions and try to backseat drive, and I'll listen to the suggestions certainly, but there really is nothing I can do besides cheat, and if I cheat, it'll probably get my channel deleted. So I'm just trying to be a good boy and follow the rules and hope that one day my good actions will grant me some grace or charity from the YouTube algorithm. Anyways, that's it for this recording. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want to friend or follow me on any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below in the description box. And if you want to support me further, there's a link to Patreon, Or you can friend me on Steam and gift me a game off my wish list, or gift me a gift card. Steam Summer Sale is coming pretty soon. That would be a great time to make a gift. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.